Hello, sir.
Hello, Rabbi Chazi.
Yeah, you had a serious streaming today.
I did, yes. Which is kind of funny because tomorrow is the deadline for Medicare enrollment and maybe the busiest day of the year. But yeah, it's funny. I think I took care of most of the clients. And Richard, who let you on here? You're wearing a jacket. You go to college. Why would you wear a jacket? Did you just come from
Uh,
chapel?
no, I went to mass this morning,
You
so
went to mass this morning.
I did. I did,
Chezi,
and
this
then
man is going to mass. What is he doing on our Jewish stream? He's like a Christian and stuff.
I think it's beautiful that he's going to mass. He should keep going to mass, keep on praying. Good
oh,
for you.
thank you.
Really good for you. Um, so hello, Richard. I was actually, and obviously you guys are welcome to continue. I was telling Jacob that this was like a sort of a short hop on, but I wanted to just give him like some of my thoughts I had. I was at a panel with Rabbi Yaakov Nagan, who recently came out with a book. He's part of this institute of the Oratora Stone Institute, and he came out with a book called His Name is One, which I've spoken about on this channel. And it's a Hebrew book, but hopefully it'll come out in English translation soon and an Arabic translation. And there was another rabbi there, Rav Ori Cherki, which also we've mentioned here in the past, who is a French Israeli rabbi, Rabbi Yehuda Leon Mini 2's student. And he is very involved with the Noahide movement in Israel and abroad, but less so in the States, I believe. And they had a panel, which was really a full house, which was really nice to see. And there was also, I would say there was probably, I don't know, 80, 100 people there. It was like, I mean, it was like in a study hall, it was full. And aside from them, out of them, there was probably 20% women, which was also interesting. And that also has to do sort of with this space generally online, if there's a lot of women or not. So I thought that was nice as well. Either way, in the panel, uh, it Rav Yaakov Nagan general attitude was from his reading of the prophets. Um, he was going towards a reading of, that it's a more pluralistic understanding that yes, the Israelites, the Jews, have a specific role, which relates to the whole general conversation we have here with Noahites and should people convert or not. But there's a specific role. But the other religions, while needing to accept God, could still do so within the framework of their religions. And he was saying that on the ground, he's like, both of them were agreeing that they're not interested in, let's say, the 1960s to to early 2000s version of interface, like Kumbaya. Everyone's great. Everyone's, you're great, we're great, but really we're the best. Those kind of attitudes. They're not interested in that. However, he was telling Rav Shirky that on the ground things are changing. He says the world is moving forward, and it's he's like, these discussions have become very, very dynamic, and he says that if we want, not about missing the train, but if we want to sort of, if we want to, we need to step up to the plate, and we need to be engaging this conversation. And Rav Shirky's attitude was more of, he didn't see. I need to follow up with him with another one-on-one conversation. But he was very understanding of the Noahites, but didn't really answer the question which is, how do they congregate? What do they do? Right? Some of the conversation you were having with Ryan, which I didn't finish yet, which is like, I sort of want to, jump to the next step of converting to Judaism because like I can't practice this 100 million or so noise that you're talking about, right? Like, you know, we're
100,000, not 100 million, 100,000.
100,000, sorry, not 100 million, 100,000. You know, where can they congregate? How can they get together? And he didn't really address that. Like, you know, he was sort of playing off. Sorry, go ahead.
I have some questions. So, is Rabbi Nagen
Yeah.
considered a posek?
He's not a posek, but he's a recognized Orthodox rabbi. Teaches
Rabbi
it.
Shirky, what's really interesting about Rabbi Shirky is he wrote a book which is probably one of, I think it is kind of considered the book where he was bothering to make Piskei Din as far as Noachides. And as far as I'm aware, he's the only one who did that. And Rabbi, was it Goldstein? Who's the name of that posek? Very well known posek who wrote a Haskama and wrote notes, actually went through and like put in a lot of notes on his book.
On Rav Shirky's book?
Yeah.
So I am actually blanking out on it, but I was gonna say that his book does have a wide range of recognition from all different types of rabbis. So from I would say, let's say, from as liberal as like Kahila in America, like all the way to the more well, I wouldn't say ultra Orthodox, but like fairly wide ranging. So yes,
Rabbi Shochat wrote a Haskama, and he's Chabad, and now Rabbi Gold something, I forget. He's a very well known posek in Israel. He
not Rabbi Shalom Gold.
No,
he was actually yeah.
He gave a lot of smicha. He was like one of, outside the Rabbanut, he was one of the rabbis who
the Garzan.
No.
Yeah, that's an acronym. Goldberg, you mean?
Goldberg? Was it? Yeah.
Wait a second. Yeah, it's Harav Zalman Nehemiah Goldberg.
Yeah.
Or he's known as the Garzan. That's what he used to be called. And he would give smicha. His smicha was a different version. It was really like this test that you take home with you, and you write it out. You sit in front of him. He asks you some questions, and it was far and few between would be the people that went there that were like fakers. But it's a different kind of, let's say, smicha. So you're not really necessarily recognized by the government necessarily. You could teach in some schools. It's he passed away recently, but
so when you read the Haskama he wrote on Rav Shirky's book, he actually like he seemed kind of like excited about it, that somebody was actually taking the time to Piskei Din. And we don't like, other than Rabbi Shirky, there's nobody who's actually paskening. Rabbi Shochat did when he was still alive, and it really bothers me that once he died, because that was his shlichus from the Rebbe, and when he died, Chabad just like basically just dropped it, and I don't see anybody else of the caliber of Rabbi Shirky actually seriously engaging. Like, so there was a question on the server whether or not Sheva Mitzvot B'nai Noach are Yareg Val Yavo, and apparently somebody on our thing had been listening to believed that none of them are considered Yareg Val Yavor. Even murder is not considered Yareg Val Yavor for a Noachide. And that was like really? Are you serious about that? Whereas I've heard other rabbis like say all of them are Yahareg Val Yavor. And that's another one that's like, really? Are you serious about that?
Well, definitely 3.
You think the same 3 that by Jews are Yahareg Val Yavor are Yahareg Val Yavor by a Gentile?
I would need to confirm, but I would believe that would regardless be the case.
Why? Why should sexual immorality be Yahareg Val Yavor by a Gentile? And it's very clear. No. Everybody said that. Everybody I've ever heard of who believes that will say that it's only a Jew who, by idolatry, it's Yahareg Val Yavor. Well, like
by idolatry, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Idolatry for a Gentile, Yahareg Val Yavor? No way.
No. That's not true. How? No. Well, 1 second. You could say like I'm saying originally.
Richard, do you have any idea what we're saying?
Right. Well, but Rav Shirky's thing is called like Brit Olam, right?
I think so. Yeah. Yes. Richard, do you understand what we're talking
Vaguely.
about?
Something about whether Gentiles are considered condemned if they do certain things or not.
If so, for example, for a Jew, right? If somebody says to a Jew, "Kill that man, or I'll kill you," right?
Yeah.
Then he has to allow himself to be killed rather than to kill someone else.
Right.
And there are 3 broad categories of mitzvot, which for Jews are considered Yahareg Val Yavor. You should die rather than transgress them. And those are murder, idolatry, and sexual immorality.
Okay.
The question becomes if those apply to Gentiles and how they apply to Gentiles by the 7 mitzvot b'nei Noach. And I have heard the argument that since Ubacharta b'chaim is actually a mitzvah to Jews and not Gentiles, V'chai bahem is a mitzvah to Jews and not Gentiles, that actually you could argue all of them are Yahareg Val Yavor. And it's I mean, I hear the argument. I think it's a bad argument.
In theory, you would say that none of them really should apply. None of them. I'm just for some reason I'm remembering seeing somewhere where someone said those 3 potentially could apply, but on face value, none of them really should apply because, I'm trying to how to say this without sounding like too controversial, but like there's a different level of expectation from
nefesh. Yeah, to be willing to die for the Torah is something we expect of Jews and not necessarily of Gentiles. That is not to say that a Gentile could not say that I would rather die than kill someone. It is a question of what is incumbent upon a Gentile.
Correct, but ultimately, and this is something I challenged the rabbi about, Rabbi Shirky, in the Q&A. I asked him, I said, like, you guys are tiptoeing around some of these concepts. I'm like, but Rav Nagan's book over here is making bold claims like alluding to different rabbis recognizing Islam and Christianity and their prophets as divine characters and divine religions. And I said, not like the most extreme version, like the most stringent version over there would be the Rambam. I said, not like the Rambam version. It says, like, he sort of brings it in through the back door. I know you read it today on your Bible study. You read that phrase. But I mean, like, the first time I saw that when I was much younger, I was like, this is mind blowing. But if you compare that to Rav Yaakov Amden, you're like, this is like, this is nothing. This is, so I was challenging the rabbi and asked him, what's the ramification for that? And what's the ramification for that with Shituf? Is this a lechatchila? Is this a b'di'evad? Are they supposed to, like, ideally, like in 200 years from now, they'll forget about this Jesus character, and they'll come on board. Or is it no? Like, you could be doing your Sheva Mitzvot Bnei Noach, and is this what Jesus and Paul potentially were trying to do, or Jesus were trying to do, which is created an updated operating system of the Sheva Mitzvot Bnei Noach to the world, to the Gentiles via Christianity. But there wasn't, I mean, that ended up being like the bigger question of the night, and like they were kept on going back to that sort of from the outside, but not actually like getting into the thicket. But it didn't seem like Rav Shirky seemed to be, his attitude was, if an individual wants to do more mitzvahs, great. If someone really wants to convert, they can, but like, there's no need to if they don't want to. And people should be able to live. And like a posek, he talks about the individuals. So he says, there's a guy that came to me. His wife's Christian. He's a Noahite, and he wants to be buried with her. And I told her, yeah, you guys could definitely be buried together in the same graveyard. That's fine. He's like, yeah, but she wants a cross, and I don't want a cross. Like, can we do that? He's like, no. He's like, how about you guys just write? He wrote like some pasuk that you guys could just both have on your thing, and that's it, like in English. And he's the guy was like, sure. So that's like a very specific, practical like answer. Or there's one guy was saying, can I keep on like praying to Jesus? And he gave some answers like, as long as basically you don't see him as like a god, then like knock yourself out. So Rav Nagan's attitude is more like, it seems like he's giving a platform to say, no, maybe that needs to be the banner, right? The banner is to tell them like, hey, yes, it requires some tweaking, but like, which would be the conversations you have with Sam, right? Like, so getting like deeper into those conversations, being like, okay, so if we could agree, Sam, that from a Unitarian point of view, you're standing here, and you're managing to create that difference and notice and see where Jesus ends and where God begins, or the Father begins. At that point, then the question is, okay, now most of the, the 7 laws you're already keeping. So are you then my brother in arms? Like, are you then welcome into the temple to come pray, and then, go back to go back to church once you leave Jerusalem after you came up? So again, that was not answered, but that's sort of where I was digging for to see where they stand on that. Rav Nagan seems to be more open to that idea.
Okay, I have to tell you, my personal idea is that ultimately we need an Ezrat HaOmot in our synagogues, and a mechitza between the Jewish section and the Gentile section. And like, nobody's thinking like that.
Can you say it one more time? I'm just trying to imagine it.
I want, like, we have an Ezras Nashim. I want an
Right.
Ezras Laomin, right? And like have a mechitza between the Jewish section and the Gentile section.
So I'll try to answer that. I'm bringing in another case. So there's the meat and milk, dairy and meat, dietary restrictions that we have. And we don't have to get too much into depth into them, but even if as science advances, and we discussed this a little in the past, Jacob, and I could show that they're all lab made, and so they're not coming from any like original thing, and I can have them together. I would still want to have a practice of separation, because there's a deep rooted message in that. We don't have to get into like the specific one, but separations and separation is also there to imply there's many times where unity and union is necessary, which by the way you see with the fringes with tzitzit, because you can't wear wool and linen together. However, you could do that with your fringes. It's a balance of whatever. It's deeper stuff. I mean, we don't have to go down that lane, but either way, there's a place to have that fusion. But back to your thing about the Christians. So because I believe that is a deep sentiment of creating a difference, I do think that's where it comes into be a priestly class, where there are certain activities which could be separate while still together. However, I would hope that there could be you know, a large place where you could congregate together as well. So
Yeah, I don't know how much you know about the Christian Bible, but there's this ultimately
guy named Jesus.
well, no, there's a part where they talk about the ripping of the veil and removing the separation between the Gentiles and the Jews. And it's like ultimately I am thinking of something that really rejects that teaching of Christianity.
Yes and no, because like I mean, like I hear what you're saying. It's like, no, I do want the veil, but it's not. But like this is the same thing that happens with Orthodox and egalitarian synagogues when they want to remove the division between the men and the women. And the attitude is because the division is seen as like an affront to equality or an affront to like, and it's not that. So like when the terms are used that way, for example, if the veil isn't there, and people in the synagogue start bugging out, running around, being like, "No, we can't." Then you're misunderstanding the point. That would be the wrong reaction to that. However, people that just walk inside to a synagogue and see a separation, and then have like go into conniptions and can't handle it right now. So that's another obviously extreme. And this comes all the way down to the culture wars, which is you see, which I'm saying, like in Me Too or any pendulum swim, you see like humanity is still trying to strike the balance with, how that looks. And that goes all the way back to that Vice conversation that Jordan Peterson was having, where about like women putting on lipstick and they're like trying to jump on him, like, what are you saying? And the Torah, the Bible, and many other world religions are always trying to, there's a balance. Same with the veil that the wife wears when she covers her face. Okay, so I mean, again, these are coming from different places, but there is a place for sanctity. There's a place for things to be revealed and not revealed. Same thing also with even in the tabernacle. Well, in the Holy of Holies, the Holy of Holies was designed in such a way where the carry poles of the ark would stick out a little into the next section. And you'd be like, did someone mess up? From a design perspective, like someone needs to pay for that. Talking about like we hired X inches. This is crazy. But the attitude is of like, that's hidden, yet that's still seen. So there's a
look. This is
thought to that.
There are serious theological disagreements between Christianity and Judaism, and there are places where I think that ultimately, as much as we want, I don't like kumbaya. Oh yeah, whatever you guys believe is fine, and we'll figure out a way of making it work with what we believe. And it's like, no, I don't want to do that type of kumbaya.
Agreed.
Things that are non-negotiable in Judaism, for example, the priesthood of Israel, right? And the very real separation between Jews and Gentiles that exists in the Torah is not negotiable. And that's something, I mean, that's ultimately, when it comes down to my discussions with Father Stephen DeYoung, like that's what it really seems to be coming down to. Our disagreements are not so much about Jesus and atonement and the Trinity as it is about the priesthood of the
whole
whatever church he's a part of, right? The episcopacy, the bishops, and that tradition and the church fathers versus the rabbis. When if you actually believe that Justin Martyr's discussion was with Rabbi Tarfon, which people do argue that Trifo from Justin Martyr is actually Rabbi Tarfon, and like one person was right and one person was wrong, or the great disputation of Nachmanides, right? Nachmanides, I would say, was right, obviously, and the Catholics were wrong, obviously. And like these are not things we can just kumbaya over. And like, yeah, that's it seems to me that that's actually where a lot of the discussion you're talking about is like Rabbi Shirky, I'm guessing, getting the impression is more of my type, which is okay. You know what? There are certain things will allow the Christians from their religion because we're not going to impose what we believe is right necessarily on them. But when somebody decides to come to our synagogue, right? Um, Look, there are plenty of people who will say, why are you saying that there needs to be a mechitza between Jews and Gentiles? And I think there should be a mechitza between Jews and Gentiles.
But so again, I would stress that I think Rev Nagan is in agreement in a certain extent with that, but his attitude is there's a time and place for that, which means like, you know, I'm hearing this conversation that you're having with in your Bible study, right? With Mitch sitting up. First of all, Mitch sounds like the most beautiful, kind-hearted soul in the world, basically.
Yes.
Like apologizing. I feel like if someone was like mugging him, he'd be like, "I'm sorry, I don't have more money on me. If I would have known, I would have come with a different credit card."
He is one of those Christians that looks at, you know, the story from Les Miserables of Jean Valjean.
Jean Valjean.
You know the story. He steals the silverware, and they bring him back, and the priest is like, I'm very upset at you. You forgot to take the candlesticks, you know?
Right, yep.
And no, Mitch, I love the man. He's
so
like, yeah.
So with regards, so I'm hearing this beautiful conversation, Mitch, and you're talking to Jason, I think, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
Right.
Jason, yeah.
So you are, and Richard, take no offense to this. Like while you're discussing with them, someone standing from the side, I'm like, you know, you're playing with their head. Not in a bad way. They're just like, wait. Well, and I see Mitch is like trying and saying, and Jason's like, yeah, these are questions. And then I'm following that with Ryan, right? Ryan's like, you know, this didn't make sense. That didn't make sense. So, and I contrast that to Tuvia, right? Like Rabbi Tuvia Singer, and he was getting like not a lot. Someone was sending a little hate towards him in the comment section a while back in one of the streams, and my attitude was like, you know, he's coming about this from a different place. However, the Rav Nagan conversation, you know, Tuvia Singer's not having a conversation. Like, listen, there's a certain way how you could see Jesus, right? He's not interested in quoting Rav Kook and telling you that. That's not his spiel. Now, I think you would agree with me that he wouldn't go and tell you like, well, Rav Kook is like he's a crazy guy, right? He wouldn't go down that line. He is on a different mission. He's on a different path. What Rav Nagan is trying to say that on the ground, what's happening is what Jacob is talking about. Like there's just streaming and there's just chatting, and on the ground there's these Abraham Accords, and on the ground I'm going to these people and I'm talking to them, and people want to have a conversation. They don't want to necessarily, like the Noahites don't want to necessarily hear like then just hate, you know, hate Jesus or forget that. They're looking for something else. And
where'd you go? We lost Chezi. So I mean, yeah, this is what we were talking about with what I was talking about with Ryan is most of the Noahide, like the Noahide movement, started with a bunch of Jewish anti-missionaries, and that included Rabbi Shochat was an anti-missionary, and Rabbi Singer is an anti-missionary, and Rabbi Skobach is an anti-missionary, and Rabbi Shulman is an anti-missionary, and Jews for Jesus, which backfired spectacularly, right? And it was an attempt to convert Jews to Christianity, and it ended up converting a lot of Christians to Judaism. And that is that's where Noahide started, and that's part of the reason why Noahides tend to be so anti-Christianity and anti-Jesus, and very, very hostile to that. And it's not necessary. I mean, like, the hostility comes from Jews being like, yeah, we don't want any Jews converting to Christianity, and we want to stop Jews from converting to Christianity. So let's pretty much attack Christianity. And now the discussion's very, very different. So yeah, don't know what to tell you. What do you have to say for yourself, Richard?
Well, I'm in my car because I got out of the Vendonk estuary, and we had a very interesting new guy show up. He was I think he's an Orthodox Jew. I don't know if he's Orthodox, but he is a Jew. He had a yarmulke on, and he was talking about how he's interested in talking with other traditions, and he attends regularly a Baptist Bible study as a Jew, which was great, a great laugh. And John told him that he should meet you sometime, but he's quite the character. Um, and yeah, just there is a I think there's a hunger on both sides, both Jew and Christian, for more substantive conversation about our differences. I'm still unclear as to what the goal state is, because is it ultimately deeper conversation but agree to disagree, or is it really trying to see if there's a way to synthesize the two, like Hezi seems to be wanting to push for, but you're just saying it's not possible.
Well,
Which
I'm
seems,
not saying it's not possible. It's he's back.
Jacob, Richard, I'm sorry, my 9 o'clock client came in early,
okay.
which I'm happy about. But I gotta go. Jacob, I'm sorry. Thank you for jumping on for the short stream, and
Yeah,
we'll talk.
yeah.
Okay,
But
bye. Um, yeah. Look, I think part of it is the messianic fervor within Judaism is funnily like more in some sorts, like, Christians aren't that messianic. They just aren't. They just they're
yeah,
not looking forward to, like, have you seen that meme, look busy, Jesus is coming, right?
no, I haven't, but I can picture.
Yeah. It's like this idea of forestalling the apocalypse, and, like, you know Christians aren't looking forward to the coming of the Messiah. And there are a lot of Jews, and frankly, the Jews who get involved in the Noahide stuff tend to be very messianic. I'm really wondering about this guy, who he is, because, like, he went all the way out to Chino. Was he from? Did he say where he's from? Like, where did he live?
He said he lived 15 minutes away.
Okay, he's not an Orthodox Jew. There are
Okay.
no Orthodox Jewish
Yeah,
communities.
probably a different kind of or sect then, for
Yeah.
sure.
What color yarmulke was he wearing?
Blue-ish?
Black,
No, blue.
blue-ish.
Yeah, it
Okay.
had like a pattern to it.
Oh, it had a pattern. Okay, yeah, he's probably Reform or Reconstructionist or something.
Okay.
Um, it, yeah, it's look. this is part of what I keep on telling Rabbi Malot, because he's very mainstream. And I keep on trying to get him involved in this corner of the internet, because he's not one of the crazy messianists. And unfortunately, a lot of the Chabadniks, they don't want to get involved because they are worried about being labeled crazy messianists. And a lot of the
Okay.
Zionists who get involved are crazy messianists. And then there are all the rabbits who are charlatans. And it's like, there are very few high caliber rabbis who are actually involved in this, which is like kind of sad, but kind of like, I can have these discussions because I'm not a rabbi. Like, I'm just an insurance broker,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
So I can have these discussions and nobody's going to lose their mind. But if I was the rabbi of a synagogue and I was like having these discussions, maybe some people would lose their mind. So I don't know. Did you get home?
What?
Are you home? Are you
No,
back?
I had dinner and I'm in my car. No.
Okay. You need to get home because it's 11 o'clock on a school night, Richard.
That is true. All right. Well, oh, I also did talk. John watched our discussion, and he said that you had been telling him that he's doing everything wrong. So,
he's not doing everything wrong, but he's doing a lot of things wrong.
Okay.
I have been telling him that he wants to pretend that there's no structure, and it's like there already is a structure. I'm just trying to give it shape, whereas he wants to pretend that we don't need a structure. And it's like, no.
The impression he gave me was that he was the structure, and that if you appointed a what's your name for it, a central.
He's calling it an estuary czar. Yes,
yeah, and so he talked about how he organized, before COVID, he organized the West Coast trip, organized Europe, is organizing Chino. So, if you appointed someone, you're not going to usurp that role he's already playing. So, I don't know. We're gonna have lunch next month and hammer that out, just so I can have his side of the picture in my head. So
I keep on telling him I'm not trying to usurp anything, but it's like ultimately, like, estuary is Paul Vanderklay's, and Paul is like, I don't even run estuary, and it's like,
but
really, Paul, you don't? And it's like, well, is John running it? If John is running it, then you need to actually like admit that John is running it. And I'm fine. Like, whoever wants to run it. And I've told John, like, if whoever I don't have a candidate. It's like, and okay, so this is the analogy I make. Just because you refuse to get to have a wedding ceremony and exchange vows doesn't mean that your living girlfriend isn't your wife. Like, if you're living together, and like, especially if you're having kids and stuff, like, just the fact you're like, we didn't actually have a wedding ceremony doesn't mean you're not married. And it seems to me like there's a lot of people who refuse to, like, who want to. It's the same spirit. It's the same spirit of living together, which is
Right.
our little corner, this little corner, not actually having an organization.
Yeah, I get that, and you want to make it official, I guess, is the point of the analogy.
Yes, if there's a divorce, I want to know. I want to know
Right.
how the assets are going to be divided.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, because I was gonna say like, then if John gets this thing done in May and it works, then does that mean we don't need a structure because it works, but then you still do want one going forward? So I guess yeah, I don't know, just the organizational politics of a board and stuff is sticky for people. But I guess that like that's part of becoming or going into the flesh, as it were, like we want to. Because you can't really do large scale in person stuff without that infrastructure. So, I don't know.
I mean, I keep on telling him like whatever he wants to decide to do for the Chino thing, like I'll support him. Like, and I've told him that.
Good.
But at the same time, like it's like he doesn't anticipate thousands of people coming, and for me, it's like, well, why not? What would be wrong with thousands of people coming to whatever? If we were to have it in Los Angeles, guess what? I think we would get thousands of people, certainly several hundred.
Well, and so what he told me tonight was, he basically said the main point for him of these is to promote estuary, is to get estuary leaders to step up and make a commitment, just like Europe was. Like Europe for Paul and John, a large part of it was getting people to make a commitment and make these plans of regular groups that will meet. Um, and so whether that can be accomplished as a large scale, multi-thousand person event, I don't know. Maybe John just has a different goal in mind.
He's very, very Protestant. God have mercy on his soul.
I do. Yes. Aren't we all? So,
Yes, we are. We are, in fact, all Protestants. Okay,
all right.
it's 11 o'clock. I have to get some sleep and do some work, and so do you. I am going to end the stream. Good night, people.
All right.